Good evening, everybody. A big welcome to you all. Hopefully, that video got everyone in the mood. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. As ever, your support is much appreciated. For those of you who I've not met, my name is Ross Jevons. I'm Director of Communications and Digital at Chance to Shine. This event, well, it's about giving you really a snapshot about our plans, our priorities for the year ahead. And hopefully, you'll come away as excited as we are in terms of what's to come. Boring housekeeping stuff. We'd love to take your questions as we did last year at the end of the session. To that end, there is the Zoom Q&A function, which I'm sure we all sadly became familiar with over the last few years. I'd encourage you to use it. Put your questions in there throughout the night and we'll try and answer as many possible at the end. Drop them in throughout the evening. If we don't get to any of them, we will 100% get back to everyone over the next few days as well. So if there's a really detailed question, we'll go away and do our homework. We'll hear from a few different speakers this evening, which should give you a real flavour, I guess, for the hard work that is planned for 2023. Firstly, I'd like to introduce our interim Chief Executive, Vanessa Green. Many of you will know that Laura Corden is currently on maternity leave and doing very, very well. Vanessa has been at the charity for over 7 years now as our Director of Impacts and Evaluation. She knows Chance to Shine inside out, so what better person to have on the call. Good evening, Vanessa.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hope the tech holds up and I managed to keep myself off mute when needed, but Ross has promised to shout at me if I have done the silly Zoom thing. I just wanted to say thank you and hi and welcome to everybody this evening. My first job this evening is to reflect a little bit back on the last 12 months and give you a flavour for what we've been doing. I think first and foremost, when I think about the last year, and especially the last 12 months, we were just so happy to see so many children and young people back playing cricket together. So 560,000 children playing in 4,000 schools and 200 street projects across the country was amazing and much more than we'd hoped for, especially having spent the last few years in the pandemic. So it really is just about being very happy to get everybody back together. If I'm reflecting about what we did more last year in terms of focus, I think more so than ever, we were very purposeful about where we took our projects to, and we really thought about which children really needed to, take part in cricket and who would benefit the absolute most. So what we did was we took a very data-led and a very insight-led approach when we were thinking about where our programs needed to be and what schools we needed to work in. So we mapped out the whole country. We mapped out every single state school in the country, and we were looking at data in terms of areas of economic deprivation or children who are eligible for free school meals. We looked at areas where we know children are more physically inactive and where they might be in need of trying a new sport or finding a new passion. And lastly, we overlaid all of this with areas where we know children have less opportunities or less accessible cricket offers. So I really thought about where the programs were most needed. And that resulted in last year, for example, of all the schools we worked in, about 1,500 were schools where there was a really high proportion of children receiving free school meals. So even just having that opportunity to try the sport, to try something new, it made us really ambitious too in terms of thinking about where our street programs are. Because if you get a child really excited about cricket in school, you want them to be able to continue playing afterwards in their community where cost just isn't a barrier. So we're really proud of that. We're really proud of what was achieved. And most importantly, we're proud of the impact that it had, because it really is all about impact. We heard from so many teachers and children and parents of just the importance of having everyone back playing together, focusing on things like building their confidence, getting back developing their teamwork skills, their leadership skills, everything that Chance to Shine is about. So it really is about the impact in that regard. So very proud of what's been done, lots more to do. And I'm very aware that everybody on this call this evening will have played their role in making that possible last year. So I just wanted to start the evening by saying a huge thank you to everybody.
I guess, Vanessa, there's always a new challenge, isn't there? And you spoke about there how we looked to return to scale when we set this event last year and recovering from the pandemic. And that was, of course, a challenge for 2 or 3 years. What's next for the charity? What are the main focuses over the next 12 months?
So our focus just remains really consistent this year, I think it's fair to say. You'll hear this evening throughout the rest of the event about how we're just making sure there's as many opportunities for children and young people to be playing cricket together. Rohan in particular later on will talk us through our plans to take our street projects from 200 street projects in the community to 300 over the next year. But within that, our focus still really remains on removing as many barriers for children to play cricket as possible. We do know that for some children, cost is a barrier to play any kind of sport. And there's a fairly sobering fact that is unfortunately 1 in 3 children at the moment in England live in poverty. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and for some families, they're just not going to be able to pay for activities outside of school. So for children from less affluent backgrounds and less affluent areas, the sport they play in school is absolutely fundamental. It's where they try new sports, it's where they find new passions. So you'll hear from Ian later on about some of our plans to work in even more schools where that just is the reality. And lastly, I would say our focus remains on, it's all well and good to get children playing cricket and give them that opportunity, but our focus has to remain on what is the environment that they are playing cricket in. It has to be welcoming, it has to be fun, it has to make them want to stay in cricket for as long as possible as they can. So that really is our focus over the next 12 months.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the importance of removing barriers for children and to play cricket, making them feel included. I guess elephant in the room, over the last 18 months, there's been a number of allegations of discrimination throughout the game and everything that cricket is going through. There's the Independent Commission, the ICEC, many people know about that. It's been set up to look at the treatment of race, of gender, of class within the sport. I mean, what's Chancellor Shine's reflection on this, and what's Chancellor Shine's role in all this, I guess, is my question.
So our response, first and foremost, is just there's no place in cricket for racism, elitism, or sexism in any shape or form. Cricket is and should always be a sport for everyone. And I think our response, first and foremost, is just our thoughts are really with anyone who has experienced that in cricket, because it's just not acceptable. We talk about this all the time, but we would be devastated if there was a child or a parent who felt that there wasn't a place, for them in cricket, because it's just not how it should be. So our view very much is that everyone at Chance to Shine, everyone in cricket has a responsibility to make cricket as inclusive as possible. And we know and we feel very, very strongly that Chance to Shine is absolutely part of that solution. Inclusion is and always will be at the heart of every single thing we do. And while we're very proud of what we've done and where we take our programs to and the environments that we create for young people, we're very ambitious in this. We want to do more. We want to work in even more areas and just make it as inclusive as possible. Because my reflection is, and I'm sure you've seen this a lot, Ross, as well, is that we know that for so many children, a Chance to Shine program can be their first experience of cricket. So we have this real responsibility and role that we could set the tone for what cricket is and what we know it to be and what it should be, which is that it should be fun, it should be inclusive, everyone should feel they should belong and be able to get something out of it to help them thrive. So, if there's one thing I hope everybody takes from this evening, is just that we take that role very, very seriously in terms of what cricket can be from a really early age for children, and that we're just really committed to making sure that we're able to bring that forward and be as inclusive as possible.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's a vital time for the sport, really. And hopefully what Vanessa said there and our actions moving forward with the charity signals our intent to be a catalyst for change, really, in the sport. Time now to press ahead, though, and to start the night in earnest. And we'll do so by talking about our schools programme, which, of course, has underpinned the work of Chance to Shine since day one, back in 2005, long before my time. So before we bring in our next guest, let's take a look at some of the example of our schools delivery in action.
Today we're here at St Thomas's. It's a really fun place.
The children in the school, they just absolutely love cricket. We live in quite a deprived area. Some of them don't have an awful lot. Some of them struggle to speak much English at all. Cricket and the Chance to Shine sessions have offered our school so many more opportunities than we would have had prior to Chris and the Chance to Shine team coming in. The cricket sessions have given the children a chance to join in and try something that, you know, they already have a lot of passion for, but they might have only played on the street or seen on the TV.
I think the school have been absolutely fantastic, really engaged with the programme, engaged with the leadership element, teacher-led CPD stuff that we've done.
I am so much more confident in delivering cricket now. It gives you so many more ideas, but so much more confidence in delivering those ideas, because you think, oh, the children loved it. And before you start, you know how engaged the children can be if you do it right. All the teachers within school who took part in the sessions and the CPD, they loved it. They kept telling me how amazing it was and how much they were excited about teaching cricket within their classes and to their children as well.
The pupils have been so engaged, probably as engaged as any school I've ever worked with, really.
When I play cricket at school, it makes me feel happy that I'm actually doing something I like a lot.
It's not just all about winning, it's about like having fun like with your friends and to support each other.
There's an obvious passion for cricket when you come into the building, you speak to the children, but it took 2 or 3 sessions to get the girls involved. But by the end of it, they were loving it. Some of the girls have then gone on to the sort of leadership programme that we ran, and a lot of the girls have transitioned over to the Chance to Shine street sessions.
As far as cricketing opportunities go, there's not a massive amount going on with regards to your traditional cricket clubs. That's why linking in with the street sessions is so important to the schools around this area, the communities around this area.
Before I didn't know how to play cricket at all, but my teachers helped me play, and when I play cricket I feel proud and confident. It makes me happier.
Technique, the skills, the development throughout the programme has given them a really unique opportunity. So yeah, we continue to deliver cricket in the curriculum and in after school clubs.
That, more than anything, that they're taking ownership of it all has been fantastic.
It makes me feel proud that I'm with my friends and I feel happy.
Our primary school of the year there, St Thomas's Primary. I mean, when you think that between 2017 and the end of 2022, just under half of all state schools in England and Wales had a Chance to Shine led programme, the impact that we see at schools like that really starts to hit home, I think. Next, I'll introduce Ian Gregory, man that needs no introduction in Chance to Shine land, our school's programme manager, and James Morgan as well, Cricket Development Officer at Northumberland Cricket Board. So, start with you, Ian, who I know is joining us remotely from a hotel. He's on his travels, as he is always, doing magical work across the country. Ian, we saw this year a real approach, didn't we? A concerted approach to bring cricket to schools who needed it the most, really. So, I mean, talk us through that strategy and the progress we've made so far.
Absolutely, Ross. So firstly, good evening, everyone. Really excited to talk about the amazing work that's been done in the last 12 months, but also even more exciting what's going to be done moving forwards through the school programme. And I think what we saw there from St Thomas's, that connection between that experience and that opportunity, that pathway, you know, perfectly captures what it's all about, really. So in terms of the strategic approach, the first and most important step in the process was to support our delivery partners to understand ours and their current position. And Vanessa referenced it earlier, using the most up-to-date insight that we had available. So we shared this with the boards. We made a commitment to ensure that every single delivery partner would be at least reflective of their local picture with regard to the number of schools above the national average for preschool meals. And then further to this, really looking to reach schools with the highest percentage of children eligible. So every board was provided with a local insight pack to help aid their planning. And through this, we're now in a position whereby this commitment will be delivered on for schools that are receiving a half term of cricket in this academic year. Thanks to additional support from ECB as well, we've been able to grow the programme to at least 300 new schools with the highest number of children eligible for free school meals. So this is a really exciting opportunity to make a huge difference, connecting with new teachers, new children, and taking cricket into schools which may have previously had limited contact with the game. And whilst not every delivery partner was able to access this, we've got 17 partners on board who made a really clear strategic approach to not only selecting the schools, but then developing opportunities in their locality to go alongside that. So we've got a great example of that will be shared this evening with Northumberland Cricket Board, who made a real focus in the urban area of Newcastle. And James Morgan's going to talk about this more in detail shortly. Alongside that expansion of the programme and that real kind of strategic direction, we also made a decision to expand on our pilot work of the Bright Sparks resource that was done in 21-22 academic year. So this academic year, the learning resource is going to be, or has been provided to 90,000 children in schools with the highest percentage of free school meals. So the resource itself, it's essentially a sticker book which a child would use to track their progress throughout the programme. But importantly, it also provides them with information on where they can play next. So whether that be a Chance to Shine Street project or an ECB national programme, so All Stars or Dynamos, you know, we're really focusing on providing every opportunity we can to, you know, learn in the sessions, develop the skills, but also knowing what could come next as well. So feedback so far on the resource has been really positive. So we've got fingers crossed that it will continue to help every child to play, learn and develop through cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of that holistic approach, James, if I can bring you briefly in now, this has all been a huge success in your area, and we're very, very grateful for that. So give us an idea of the work you did, not just to bring cricket into these schools that Ian was talking about there, but also to ensure that those children would keep playing the game outside of school in their communities.
Yeah, hi everyone. Pleasure to be here this evening. So as Greg has alluded to earlier on, we followed the brief of working very much with schools with high free school meals percentages. In our county, in Northumberland, we're very uniquely made up geographically in that we cover the River Tyne up to the Scottish border, which is a huge geographical area. But within that, we've got sort of the top end of Newcastle right next to the river. And then once you get out of that, there's not a lot else in terms of population. So over 90% of our people live within a less than 5% of our geographical area that we cover. But what we found is there's a massive imbalance in terms of where our cricket clubs are. So the cricket clubs are spaced out across the county in lots of the very affluent places. And then when you get into the heart of the city, there's not actually a lot of opportunities for people to play. So there's a little pocket within Newcastle, which is really, really densely populated, very high ethnic diversity, very high deprivation levels. And within that, we've got around 250,000 people and one actual cricket club within that area. So a big focus of ours as a county board was to try and give more focus to what has been a massively underserved area of our county and try and give more cricket opportunities. So we've worked with 16 schools, 16 primary schools in that area of the city at the moment, all of which are not only above national average for free school meals, but they sit above the 40% threshold of being among the most deprived schools in the country. So we've worked with 16 of those and tried to link them up to one of 5 street projects outside of school. And the success that we've had thus far has been way beyond our wildest dreams in terms of participation numbers. But the key focus for us was to try and give those children the opportunity to access the game that previously they hadn't had the opportunity to or the means to, because they didn't have the ability or means to travel outside of their area. And of course, there was nothing on their doorstep that enabled them to access the game.
Definitely, and I guess as well as that transition to out of school opportunities, it's vital that the teachers are more confident, right? And the teachers are feeling like they're empowered and upskilled to embrace the game, some of whom may not have ever done so before in terms of cricket. So from your point of view, we often talk about the impact we see on the young people and the participants, quite rightly. What about the impact you've seen on the teachers in your region as well?
We've been really, really lucky in that we've worked with a lot of really supportive schools and a lot of really supportive members of staff. And when we've approached the schools with the offer of this programme, a lot of them have been so grateful for us to come in for them, because I think they have been not just underserved by us in the past. I think they've been maybe underserved in general, and people maybe are reluctant to work with those schools a lot of the time because of the challenges that may well come with that. So the teachers have been really, really grateful to have us in, and the buy-in from schools has been absolutely fantastic. And we've been seeking some feedback over the last few weeks and months just to find out the impact that our programs have had. And we've noticed that one of the key themes that's come from that is the confidence levels of teachers to actually deliver cricket on their own is through the roof now. And we've gone from a lot of those schools not having cricket on the curriculum to now saying this is now a key part of our PE curriculum going forwards, not just because of the enjoyment the kids have got from it, but because of the fact that they've recognised all of the holistic benefits that come with playing the game, and the way you can draw out other life skills and other curriculum elements very easily within a PE lesson through the game, which our coaches have helped the teachers unlock using portal resources and whatnot. So we've been absolutely delighted with the feedback we've had, and the support that we've had, not just from them in school, but in terms of them actually facilitating the move for the kids to go and join in street sessions outside of school, because without the teacher being the champion for that, if you like, and almost, you know, being the vehicle to get the children there, it can often be a bit more of a challenge. So we've been blown away by it, really.
Yeah, that two-way relationship is really, really important. Ian, to bring you back in at this point, obviously everything we've just spoken about is so important in terms of the confidence of teachers and developing young people's ability to play in the community. But the schools program in recent years has also had this renewed focus on leadership, hasn't it? Developing life skills and young leaders. Tell us a little bit about the logic behind that and your hopes for the future with that element of the schools program.
Yeah, so Ross, obviously James has already referred to it, and I think Vanessa talked earlier about the amazing first experience. So obviously that is a vital step in any part of this process, that welcoming environment. But absolutely, our ambition for young people goes way beyond that amazing first experience. So we take a long-term approach that looks at that word again, holistic skills, which can be developed through engaging with physical activity, physical education and school sport. So look, those of us who've played cricket will know that it gives far more than just the skills involved with the game in terms of playing the game. And within the right environment, it connects people and communities. It helps develop resilience. It supports a range of life skills. But I think really importantly, we can't just assume that it's going to happen by chance. So we're really clear in our program design about how the coaches go about supporting this learning. And obviously James has referenced that there, and absolutely the coaching team are embracing this fully. So, you know, splitting up between primary schools and secondary schools, there are slightly different approaches that we take. So within the primary environment, we redeveloped our resources and launched them in September 2021, with each of the half-term lessons having a specific life skill focus. So the life skill is then developed through the games and the practices and how coaches ask questions along the way to aid the learning of the children. So using an example, a lesson which focuses on the social skill of collaboration is going to have multiple activities where the children will be working in pairs or in small groups. And then the coaches are going to support and will support the children to help them understand what they did to work well together and how they overcame challenges as a team. So that being one of the life skills, one of the opportunities of how that's done with real purpose. But alongside the life skill development that happens through each of the lessons, we then also designed a playground leaders course, which is aimed to give the first step into specific leadership activity for mainly the older age primary children, so year 5 and year 6. So the idea is to give the children simple activities that they can set up and run with younger children in school, be that assisting them in their own PE lessons, but also sort of playground, lunchtime activities, sort of more off the cuff stuff. So look, we've seen some brilliant examples of this being embraced. So particular note to the work of Oxfordshire, Kent, Cornwall, Worcestershire and Northamptonshire really champion this approach. Within secondary schools, obviously that's a change of environment, and our approach in secondary schools has continued to specifically focus on the leadership skills and developing leadership skills for girls aged 11 to 16. So last academic year saw us get the programme back to full capacity for the first time since COVID restrictions were removed. But not just in terms of the scale, actually the removal of restrictions, those meant that those leaders who were trained during the programmes were able to properly apply their skills. So like class bubbles being removed meant that they're able to actually work across different age groups to support clubs within their school, and then also being role models and supporting by being leaders at primary school competitions. And once again, through the work of our delivery partners, we've got amazing stories to shout about. So a really great example of this being our participant of the year nominee, Georgia from Ponteland School in Northumberland. So Georgia's been an inspiring role model to the youngest students in her school. So really shining example of that programme and what it can do. And another example of a brilliant leadership programme down in Northampton Girls High School. So the girls who were trained on the leadership courses at the school then developed their own media campaign and a video to promote the extracurricular clubs to other girls in their school, which saw great success. And I think another kind of connected benefit of that as well, and I guess that focus on girls cricket, the programme has been really important in supporting the development of a professional female coaching network. And we can now proudly say that we've got more female coaches working on the programme than ever before. And that has really dovetailed very nicely with ECB's increased investment into the female cricket workforce. So like everyone is benefiting from that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you touched on a couple of the award winners there, Ian, and I guess the fact that our school's coach of the year, Claire Amina, our street coach of the year, both female coaches, just testament to what you just said. Moving forward now, we're always reevaluating things across the charity, aren't we? Looking at our work, looking at the data, and speaking with our delivery network to work out what needs to be the priority moving forward. So, in terms of schools, where do you see things going in the next few months, next few years?
I think within primary schools, the plan is actually really simple. It's to continue to embed what we're already doing and to continue to support our network of coaches to bring these opportunities to life. So I think we have to recognise we're only actually in the second delivery year of this new programme. And this year, with the expansion of the programme, there are even more new schools being supported. So our responsibility in working with the network of deliverers, and importantly, alongside our impact and evaluation team, is to understand how this programme's landing. And we've got some work as well alongside Canterbury Christchurch University, who are doing an independent evaluation of this new investment and new opportunity. And with that, what it's going to allow us to do is actually see what we might need to adapt and to be ever more effective. But really, it's just continuing that great work. In the secondary space, actually, we're doing a lot of reflection here. And we're taking a long considered look at how our programmes are being positioned, because we recognise there really is a huge opportunity to do a lot more here. So in terms of scale, we currently only reach, and I say only 200 schools. It's still great reach. But if you compare that to our reach in primary schools, the secondary school reach is 5% nationally versus over 25% in primary. We also know that there's a clear demand to support boys' participation as well as girls, because we're seeing that the extended impact of COVID upon both activity levels, but also the mental well-being of teenagers. So that has to be a real focus. So we're gonna really ensure that programme is right and can do as much as it can to solve the challenges that young people are facing going into the future.
Absolutely. So much great work has been done, but a lot more work to do. I guess it's the message there, isn't it? And that will always be the case. James, Ian, thank you so much for your contributions, and of course your work throughout the last year or so. A big part of the story we were just telling was about connectivity, wasn't it? Ensuring these young people that we're inspiring in schools, many of whom are in underserved areas, are able to play the game week in, week out in their community. And that, of course, is what street cricket has always been about. So before we bring in our next set of guests, let's take a look at a really great example of street cricket in action.
Normally about Aston you hear negative things, knife crime, gun crimes, stuff like that, and gang crimes.
These kids, they're lacking self-esteem, lacking self-confidence. The focus on mental health has come on the back of COVID-19, where as young people they felt isolated. The main thing we have in this community is the taboo and the stigma. Mental health is not talked upon, so it was really important for us to engage in that and try and challenge that through having sessions where we talk individually to our young people.
My uncle was a father figure to us. He passed away with cancer. Khalid and Wakas have paid a lot of respect. They come to the funeral, and to me that's a big thanks. And I've been thinking about my uncle a lot, but when I come here and play cricket and talk, have fun, it kind of sits, but it helps me a bit.
And that's what it's about, joining these kids for the right path. As much as we all enjoy cricket, it's about making them good human beings as well.
At times in primary school, like I said, I've got suspended one time, and ever since I've been coming here, my behaviour's turned one way right up. It's become a lot better. As you know, we're all young people. Things can become very challenging for us, and what I love about cricket is it's just a way for me to be myself.
Myself and Khalid, who works in Saltley session with me, came up with this initiative to bring Aston kids and Saltley kids together from street projects into a hardball team. Most of these kids didn't play hardball before, they didn't even play street cricket before, so to make that transition was great.
I think with myself having not much opportunity as a young kid, these kids can make it on to become professional, but they just need that opportunity. I feel like Chance to Shine do give that, regardless of where you live, regardless of where you've been brought up with. If you just need a bit of motivation, a bit of encouragement, you can go a long way.
We've seen hidden gems in this community. These kids are one of the most sweetest and nicest kids I've ever met in my life. It just shows a different side to Aston, what Aston's really about.
So my hopes in the future is I want to open a 24-hour pharmacy, and the pharmacy's name's going to be my uncle's name, and it's a cancer support pharmacy. I think I've progressed a lot, and every week I've been coming and it's been helping me.
I was genuinely so privileged to be there on the day that we filmed that film at Aston Street Project, and that raw honesty of Bilawal, the young man there who was talking about his uncle, really, really touching. And we're obviously so sensitive when we tell those stories as part of Chance to Shine, but he sought us out and he said, I want to speak about this, I want to speak about my coaches. And that is absolute testament to the great work of Siraj and Wakas and all the coaches in Warwickshire, and the relationships they build out at that particular project. It's amazing to see, and obviously that is replicated in so many different ones of our delivery partners across the country. So to dig into this a little bit more, I'm going to bring in Rohan Randara now, our Inclusive Programmes Manager, as well as Zoe Pugh, the Cricket Development Manager at Oxfordshire. Rohan, if I can come to you first. Last year, we announced our street appeal, which I'm sure many, many people on this call would have been aware of, with that grand ambition of growing the project, which had returned back to the 200 mark post-COVID, and growing that all the way up to 300 across England, Wales and Scotland. An ambitious goal. So can you just update that on us on how that is progressing?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. First of all, hi everyone. It's great to see so many people on the call this evening. It's fantastic that we have so many people invested in our cause at Chance to Shine, and it's really, really appreciated, not just by myself, but I know everybody at the team at Chance to Shine as well. But yeah, Ross, firstly, I think it's really, really important that we say a massive thank you to our partners at Sport England, who last year thankfully agreed to continue heavily funding our street programme for a further 5 years, which is fantastic news. And also a massive thank you to our partners at the ECB as well for agreeing to match fund our street programme in the region of £375,000. And that was with a big help from our amazing fundraising team, who recently funded the other half through the street appeal campaign that I know a lot of people on the call this evening actually donated to personally. So a massive thank you to everybody on the call who donated to our street appeal as well. Because without your continued support and your vital support, we can't continue to change the lives of thousands of young people like Bilawal, that you just saw in that fantastic video clip there. With your support, it's allowed us to actually make fantastic progress on the 300 projects that Ross just mentioned there in the top 30% most deprived areas across the country. You know, we're set to deliver around 35,000 coaching hours this year and deliver the project to over 6,600 participants, and that'll be led by our 36 trusted delivery partners from across England, Scotland and Wales this year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Vanessa touched on this briefly earlier, Ro, but I guess when we're thinking about where these projects need to be located, these 100 additional projects, it's quite a big responsibility, isn't it, to work out what areas need them most. So how did we go about that?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I mean, you know, we didn't just drop a pin in the middle of nowhere and say, come to me. We actually, you know, had a lot of help from our impact and evaluation team, and we carried out something called a gap analysis to understand where street cricket was needed the most. And we considered 4 main factors. And the first one was looking at areas of economic disadvantage. And we did that by using IMD data, which is the index of multiple deprivation. And that's done via a scoring system with, you know, number 1 to 3 being the most deprived areas across the country, being the top 30%, and the higher numbers, sort of 8, 9 and 10 being the least deprived. And we're looking to put our projects in the top 30%, so number 1 to 3 in terms of IMD. We also looked at areas where a high proportion of children are inactive. So we did that by using Sport England Active Live data. We looked at areas where high proportions of young people are from ethnically diverse communities. And then we finally looked at areas without an existing affordable free cricket offer. because we don't want to, duplicate something that's already existing in an area. We want to make sure that we're delivering street cricket to, young people who currently have no access to cricket whatsoever. And we're currently well on track to reaching the goal of 300 projects by using the criteria I've just mentioned there. And we're delivering cricket to the areas that we really, really do need it the most. But for me personally, it's really just not about the numbers, because we are seeing some life-changing impact on the dance floor, as some of our coaches like to refer to it. I could sit here all evening, honestly, I really could, and talk about some of the case studies like Billowalds, because there's hundreds of them. But sadly, we don't have the time for that this evening, but you can see a lot of them via our YouTube channel if you do fancy having a look tonight.
Yeah, you won't hear me say a bad thing about our YouTube channel, but that's mainly because my team looks after it, so I'm slightly biased. There is some great stuff on there. Zoe, if I can bring you in quickly now, I guess the journey doesn't end, does it, when we decide that where a project should be located in a particular area? That's where the challenge begins for you guys out there on the dance floor. So how do you go about integrating that new project into a community and getting the first participants through the doors?
Yeah, so we go out to a lot of the local primary schools, but as well as going out to the local communities. We hand out flyers, do assemblies in schools, but I think the most impactful thing that we can do is just through word of mouth. So whoever attends a session, they're just telling everyone about it. So no matter what marketing we do, the word of mouth is really, really important.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We actually commissioned a bit of pro bono research within Chance to Shine over the last 12 months, looking at how we might market these new street projects. And this company went and they spoke to coaches, they spoke to parents, they spoke to participants, they looked at pre-existing data out there in the world of sport. And we were wondering if there was some kind of magical marketing solution that might be out there. And actually, a lot of what we heard was it's all about understanding the community. It's all about word of mouth. It's all about kind of very traditional methods of bringing up these projects. And that's what people are doing so excellently out there in the community. What impact have you seen, Zoe, on the young people that have attended the projects so far in terms of their individual stories, I guess?
Yeah, so one person that springs to mind is a young man who attends one of our Oxford projects. He has autism. First couple of sessions that he came to with his mum, wouldn't let go of her hand, but our coaches worked with him, and he was really, really keen to independently just go out and play cricket. And off the back of that, his mum has said that his behaviours has changed, and he just can't get enough of cricket, which is just a powerful impact that the Chance to Shine has within the community.
Yeah, it's so nice when you see that transition from a young person coming in. You see it quite a lot, being nervous, not necessarily wanting to get involved straight away, and where they get to a few weeks later. And of course, street cricket operates all year round on a weekly basis, and there's plenty of chance to see that transition. Ro, moving forward, where do we take it from here? I asked the same question to Ian, but what role can street continue to play in these young people's lives and in the wider context of sport, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to expand the street project even further to reach more areas of deprivation over the next few years, especially with the cost of living crisis. Currently, the work we do to offer free access to cricket sessions on a weekly basis is absolutely crucial to the young participants that are on our programs right now. We've also just rolled out the first of its kind 2-day street training course for all our street coaches across the country. And we train up our coaches to understand important topics such as dealing with language barriers, inclusivity, bullying, and addressing challenging behaviour at their projects. And that will really help coaches learn important information that they can pass on to their participants. Because I do think it's vital that all our coaches and our street programs understand some of the challenges that the young people at our projects face. So they can support them to go away from the sessions feeling happy, safe, and that they've developed as a person when they leave the project every single week.
Yeah, that absolutely has to be a priority. Just seen, by the way, our first question of the night has come in, so that's great. Please do keep using that Q&A function. And as I said earlier, we'll come to as many as possible come the end of the evening. Zoe and Ro both spoke there about the impact, I guess, on the young people that we work with in street, the life skills that we try to develop, the confidence that grows and all that kind of stuff. But Zoe, if I come back to you for one final time, you also really do see some talented cricketers, don't you, at these street projects?
Yeah, there's so many hidden gems within the street projects, and we have a couple of young children, or a few young children, that come to our projects who don't play for a cricket club, and we really tried to support them as a county board to get them involved within their local cricket club, and transitioned into that hardball. Also, we've had a succession in terms of a young man sort of going into our pathway system, which is really, really positive. And I know Rohan will touch on a couple of bits that we're doing with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, Street is a relatively new program as well, I guess. So watch this space in terms of what that brings for the future. And Rowan, in terms of harnessing that talent, what systems do we have in place? As Zoe talks about what goes on at Oxfordshire, but centrally, how have we been thinking about ensuring we can help those who would like to progress and can progress further, and ensuring they're able to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, Ross, I think, you know, this is an area as a charity we can definitely improve on. Although our main priority is to support the young people at a community grassroots level, there are actions that we have taken to support bridging the gap between the recreational game and the professional game, because there's so much potential talent at our projects, as Zoe mentioned. And if we can support those young people in the right way, they can really go on to do great things. It's a work in progress, ultimately. It's in the hands of the individual counties to ensure that their street projects can tie into their local performance pathways. We have encouraged, and we do encourage all delivery partners to ensure this is the case when planning at the start of each year. We've had some successful stories in some of the counties where players have gone on to represent their respective counties, and they've started from their local street projects. So there's one young girl called Marion Pound who's just joined the Warwickshire Junior EPP program, who started at Street, and she's one of, you know, many examples that, you know, we've seen progress from the start of Street and onwards. Also at the start of the year, you know, delivery partners have to write down their street plans, and they have to tell us about various exit routes that they have on offer for young people on their street programs. And this helps us decide which projects that we think are a priority to fund as well. And, you know, if a project has more exit routes, it's probably more likely that those projects are the ones that we will fund centrally at Chance to Shine. We've also recently partnered with the Surrey Cricket Foundation to do a street development programme that will run over the course of this year. The programme involves scouting the best players from across street projects in Surrey, and we'll create a squad that will train together. And they'll be given all the necessary hardball equipment for free from our partners, Grey Nicks. So thank you very much, Grey Nicks, for that. And then they'll be invited to play a series of hardball fixture-friendly games against other teams. And the aim is for these young people then take the next step into the Surrey Pathway programme if they show promise and talent, as they'll have Surrey scouts there watching all the matches. And then finally, Ross, we've also linked closely with the MCC Foundation this year to offer hardball cricket sessions for free in local communities that surround street projects. And coaches often signpost some of the street participants to their hardball sessions, and also ensure that they are getting the opportunity to develop into a hardball setting if they wish to do so. Because, you know, if our participants are wanting to progress themselves in the game, you know, we don't want to be stingy and hog all the participants. We are here to develop those young people. And if that means that we signpost them to other hardball opportunities in their local area, then so be it.
Absolutely. I've got to say, one standout memory for me last year was down at our street finals in Lords and seeing the Pakistan international, Mohammed Hasnain, I think it was, got his stumps taken out by Hamza, a younger street cricketer in our finals. He was a beautiful in-swinging Yorker. And I think as an international cricketer, he looked quite shocked that had happened. He was expecting to come down and have a few selfies and give a few autographs, and he got more than he bargained for, albeit I think all done in the best spirit. So just goes to show there's some fantastic young players out there in these street projects. Thank you very much to Ro and to Zoe. A really great insight into street cricket there. Moving on, we're almost at the end of the evening, but before we do bring Vanessa back in to wrap up, just to say a massive thanks again to everyone on this call who's made all of this possible. So that goes to our wonderful supporters who give so generously and really back that street campaign that we were talking about, to the trust, the foundations, the corporate partners that have been invaluable over the last year. Huge thanks to, of course, to ECB and Sport England, who Rohan mentioned earlier. And last, but by no means least, because I know there's plenty of you on the call tonight, are the fantastic delivery network. So never underestimate the impact that you have day to day. Hopefully you see that consistently throughout the year, but you would have got a little insight into that this evening. I can see the questions coming in on our Q&A function to the right of my screen here, so do the last chance to keep those coming in. But before we get onto that, Vanessa, if I can bring you back in to round up, what are you hoping that people take away from everything they've heard this evening?
Hi, thanks, Ross. There's three main things I hope that people take away from this evening. The first is that I hope it's just really clear at what an amazing impact cricket can have on children's lives. You know, the videos that we just watched there only capture a snapshot of what we see in a day-to-day of everything we hear from teachers and children, from our coaches. So we're incredibly proud of that. The second is just that Chancellor Shine is incredibly determined to make cricket as inclusive as possible. And I hope you really got a sense of just how strategic we are in terms of how we think about that and how we are going to keep thinking about that in the future. And lastly, just to reiterate what Ross said, I know there's so many people on the call this evening that are supporting us in so many different ways. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do it without you, and please do continue to support us in the future. It means the world. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Vanessa. We've got a little bit of time now. I won't keep everyone too long, but just to pop on to people's questions. First one that came in actually was just asking for our bank account and sort code to send donations to. So that was lovely. Not what we were expecting, but thank you very much to Matthew for sending that in. The next question, though, a really, really good one. And Vanessa, I think I'll bring you in for that. We've talked about the economic climate in a certain extent tonight in terms of, you know, how we look to situate our projects, but with the recession and everything that's going on at the moment, and inflation, cost of living, wages, etc., how much of a challenge is that for the charity and Chancellor Shine to continue delivering how we already do at scale? Yeah,
it's a really good question. Thank you. So I think I mentioned it at the beginning of the event. The fact that there is a cost of living crisis, the fact that we know this, you know, so many people are struggling, it just makes it, you know, clearer more so now than ever that our programs are needed, because I can imagine the first thing that goes is opportunities to spend money outside of school and activities and things like that. So it makes us feel really clear that what we're doing is the right approach in making sure that as many children have the opportunity to play. Operationally, we're probably going to have to start considering at some point, or well, you know, what would the impact on this be for the charity long term? We may be faced with whether it's the price of a venue hire of a street venue a leisure centre that we might work in, that might increase. We're always really worried and thinking about our coaches and what we can do for them in this space. So it's just something to say that we're really keeping an eye on, something that we look at all the time. We haven't got to it yet, but there may be a point where, you know, the type of delivery that we have in a year to year and how much it costs, we may have to start thinking about how we do that slightly differently, maybe slightly smaller scale to keep the impact, or we just need to keep our focus on raising as much money that we can continue to have that scale and that impact.
Definitely, absolutely. Ian, just a very quick one, if I can bring you in here, if that's okay. A question we've had in the past, I think, just around the geographical split of our programs. You know, we've spoken to representatives from Oxfordshire and Northumberland today, just from your end, just to give an idea of how much of the country and how much of the UK that we currently deliver to.
I think the simple answer, Ross, is everywhere. So our delivery partners at present are the 38 county cricket boards, which includes Cricket Wales. We also have programmes in Scotland as well. So it's England, Wales and Scotland. Obviously, we can't reach every single school, but there is significant spread of those programmes across all of those areas.
Definitely. There's also been a question in from Stephen actually around the specific split of our delivery compared to the number of schools in the country. So that's definitely one we'll get back to you, Stephen, and share with you the exact numbers, because we do have really intricate stats and details in terms of the percentage of schools that we've worked in across the country. Vanessa, another question in here for you. I'll bring you back in. We spoke about inactivity earlier tonight, which has prompted this, I think. How much of a problem is that amongst young people in general? I think this question's come in really with a reflection on, you know, living in a digital age and social media, TikTok, all those things I know nothing about, obviously. But how much of an impact does that have on the young people we work with? How much of a challenge does that pose us?
It's a huge challenge. So Sport England do amazing research every year. Their Active Lives Children Research, which has a view on children's activity levels, and from the data they released recently, it's about half of children in England just don't get the level of activity they need, and that's been decreasing over the last few years. It took a real hit during COVID and is now back to where it was, but it still isn't great. We should be definitely aiming for more than that. And when we think about trying to get as many children to play cricket, first and foremost, we have to, make sure that they have a good relationship with sports. It is like our competitor is not other sports, it's screen time and it's inactivity. And that is how we always think about, if we can't grow our game, we can't grow the game we love. If we don't, if we miss out on half the children who either don't play sport, aren't active, or just don't like it. So it's always a concern, and it's probably why when we think about designing our programs, and I know Ian does a lot of work on this, is making sure that if there's a coach working in a primary school, they are introducing cricket to children, they're getting them to love the game, but ultimately what sits underneath it is that, are you building their confidence to play any kind of sport? Are you removing the kind of shame that some young people feel from maybe putting themselves forward, or being seen to maybe not win, or a fear of failure? So it's everything about trying to build those confidence levels throughout children. And lastly, all the feedback we get from parents is, especially parents of street participants, is that if they weren't here, if they weren't doing this, my fear is they'd be at home on their phone, or just being inactive. So we always have it in our mind.
Definitely. I mean, from my experience, as Vanessa says, when you go out there and you speak to parents, screen time and too much screen time is something you hear all the time. And actually, when you speak to young people, a lot of the things you hear is around either that, or if they weren't at street sessions, they'd be out in the streets, and they might be subjected to various bad influences that they wouldn't want to be subjected to. So those are two recurring themes I often find when you're having conversations with young people. Rohan, hopefully you're on your toes. Got a quick one for you here as we get to the end of the questions that have come in. It's around female participation in street. I know we have girls only projects, and it's around, I guess, the progression of girls only projects over the last few months, and around these new projects that have popped up across the country.
Yeah, absolutely, Ross. I think it's definitely a key area of focus for us going forwards, in terms of ensuring that we increase the amount of female participants we have across our programs. We actually have 32 girls only programs across the country being delivered this year, and I think that's around 10 to 12 more girls only projects than they were last year. So it has been an increase, and hopefully year on year that number will increase. Generally, really, with all the work that the game is doing from the ECB and our girls secondary program that Ian is also leading on. Hopefully we'll have that organic growth within the female game.
Definitely, absolutely. It's something we look forward to. Well, I think we're probably coming to the end of proceedings now. We're almost bang on time, which I'm always quite proud of from a technical standpoint. So hopefully everyone has got plenty out of this evening. It's proved to be a very, very useful exercise. So all that remains to be said for myself is a massive thank you to Vanessa, to Ian, to Rohan, all our guests for their input today, and of course to you all for joining us. Hopefully you'll go away with plenty to think about, feeling positive about the future, and I'm sure it won't be long until we're seeing you in person. Some brilliant events planned throughout the year, and of course in terms of the general delivery, I'm sure we'll see a few of you out and about in the network as well. So thank you very much for joining us, and have a fantastic evening.